Nope.
Hi guys, here's a little bit of thinking I did last week in the area of speed reading. So I have a lot of text to read, may easily be in the order of magnitude of 2,000 to 3,000 pages a week, and I'm always very interested when I hear that there is some stuff going on where people explore the latest and greatest way of speed reading. Now, what I recently found was something that I would like to share with you, so let's have a look. After that, I'm going to give you a little overview of my complete workflow when it comes to writing stuff. Here's my library, my bibliography. Let's assume I want to read this awesome book about Shackleton. Now, normally I go through it, and what I do now should be quite interesting. See what I do. I just mark some text, and then when I release my mouse, there's a little menu coming. This menu is not part of this solution really, but I'm showing this to you too because it is a little application on the Mac which allows you to have a pop-up menu at your mouse pointer whenever you release your mouse key. And now the good thing about that is you can not only just copy stuff, you can write your own little plugins very easily. And so one plugin that I have is this one. Now look what happens if I do that. Click it. It hands it over to some interesting application, does some formatting, and starts in the middle of the screen reading the text to me. Now, it may seem like odd for you what is happening here. Let me pause it. So what happens is this kind of reading technique is currently being developed by some guys who write it for a mobile device. And as you can imagine, on a mobile device, to read a lot of text is quite a challenge. So they came up with this idea where you essentially just show only one word on the screen every time and have it running through. Then what you also do is you highlight one character in the middle, and that amounts to you really having a pretty concentrated focus. The idea is to switch off your internal monologue, and that way it appears that you can drastically increase your reading speed. Now, my reading speed is really not bad, but when I saw this thing, I thought, okay, let's have a look at it. Now, what you can do first is you go to Google and you go and search something like it's called Spritz reading. And if you just take the images about that, you can see what this is about. So essentially you have it on a mobile device, and here's one sample app where you see the idea of highlighting a word and doing exactly what you just said. This application they do is still in beta, and I asked them to join their beta program, and I didn't get a response. I did get a response today, but as I'm impatient, I thought, okay, how about writing something like that myself? Now, somebody had already written a little bit of that, and so I started off with that code, which was on GitHub, and cloned it, and added functionality that I thought might be interesting there. Here is some of the things I added. First of all, a simple thing. I put it on a black background because I really don't like distractions. The next thing is I added highlighting. While I normally do not really look at what's happening in this text area where I paste the text, still, when I somehow lose track, I like to know what was the sentence that I have just been reading. And this highlighting is actually keeping track. If you have a long text, it will always stay in the middle of the screen. The next thing I added was pausing and continuing or resuming. So that was also normally not there. I added that. And then from time to time, while this is about switching off your internal monologue and not having you drifting off with your thoughts, I have noticed that this tends to happen with me. Now, I've used this thing for about 3,000 pages now within the last week. The moment my thoughts tend to digress, that appears to be an indicator for me that I have just run across a thought that may require a little bit more thinking and looking at. So, which is why I definitely needed pausing. And also I added the arrow keys, so I can jump around on a sentence by sentence basis. Also with the up and down arrow keys, I can up and down jump a whole paragraph. And if you want, you can also change your reading speed. So some people even claim that you can go up to 1,000 words per minute. Let's try how that looks. For me, it's a bit too fast, but maybe I'm not trained enough on that. Maybe also that the text that I'm normally reading is a little bit too complex. Another thing that I have noticed is that I am a very visual person, so what I tend to remember quite often is that I have seen a certain quote on a page on whatever article that I was reading, and it was somewhere on the, like, for example, upper left corner of a page. And obviously this spatial location, this contextualization of where you found a certain learning or reading, you will lose track of by this specific technique. So what I tend to do is, in parallel, I actually always have the text that I'm reading open in a kind of preview. Take this one, for example. Okay, if I open this one, you can see this is like a beginner's text on organizational behavior, and then you can already see what I'm doing. I tend to annotate really a lot. So here you see a little bit of text and annotations. So what I tend to do is have the speed reader now running and give me a very fast walk through the text. So a page essentially takes like a minute only. And then go back and look at what I was interested in and do some annotation. I also do not like to have to read things many times. So what I normally immediately do when analyzing a certain text is that I extract my learnings of it, and since, as I said, I'm a visual thinker, I normally then tend to put them in a mind map. I do this in parallel all the time. That can be quite complex, like those here, the topic I've been reading on personality, learning, whatever you have. So that then really relocates learnings that I'm doing spatially into my map of this world that I've been looking into. And these things I then tend to make sense of even year or 2 years after. Like this specific mind map I've drawn over 1.5 years ago, and I still refer back to it if I start reading again on a certain concept, because I exactly know what I put into which corner. And since then I have done hundreds of other mind maps. So that's the way I work with that. At the end of the day, I obviously am then going to write my own little articles on stuff. This I normally do using LaTeX, which is a typesetting tool which is dating back to the 1980s. I'm using it non-stop since 1994. As a student of physics, this is useful because you can easily typeset formula. I can just write it there and I do not really need to focus on any formatting. And in addition, I always have all my quotations and citations and stuff right. Well, you can then say, okay, how is this going to look actually? Well, that's simple. There's a keyword combination I can utilize, and it jumps over into the actual formatted text entirely automatically for me. To an extent, when I want to send the paper somewhere, I have this whole thing running, including word counts, reference building, what have you, fully automatically. Right, and this is a two-way process. As I see, there is an error probably over here. I just jump back, and I will just get exactly the line. And it's at this moment, for example, even in a different text file. But I'm digressing. This is a little bit of the rest of the workflow that I'm doing. What I wanted to show to you is, if I have some text that I'm interested in, let's take, for example, this text that I have over here. So I might just copy that with this little flyout menu. Now, it is cumbersome to copy and paste multiple parts of a text every time manually, which is why I wrote these little extensions on the PopClip app. So what I can do here is I can just say, okay, you know what, this one I also want to read at the same time. So just append it to my clipboard. And then I keep going, and I may, for example, see, oh yeah, that's another one that I'm interested in, so let's take this one too. And now at this point in time, I want to start. I have this other add-on here, which I'm using, and that now replaces this text with all of that. It formats it, it removes hyphenation breaks, and it immediately starts reading all the text for me. Now the first part I've already read, so I can jump through some paragraphs, and I can continue reading. So that's what I wanted to share with you. If you want to have a look at that, feel free to try it out. Just go to this location, github.com/mnot/spritz-js. You have all the source code. You can just get it as a zip, extract it to a directory, and then just invoke index.html. In addition to that, what you will also get is this PopClip extension that may or may not be relevant for you. I use it as an example on how you can work with that. So I think what these guys have here is really a candidate for a massively disruptive and very helpful thing. This is not limited to reading of scientific articles. As you see, the integration with PopClip makes it so accessible that you can use it everywhere. You don't even need to think about copying and pasting stuff. You just use it. You just mark text, click one button, running. And that's what I wanted to share with you. Feel free to download it, feel free to try it out, feel free to trash it if you don't like it. It gives you an opportunity to have a little trial run on these kinds of concepts. You can continue and clone it and improve it if you want. I think it is worthwhile sharing, and it has helped me save a lot of time already in the 1 week I've been using it. So I gather that that may be true for some other people too. Thanks for your interest, and feel free to leave some comments.
Yo.